Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It has been exactly 2 months since Doctor Who returned with the explosive and cinematic 60th anniversary special, The Star Beast. But now that the dust has settled on the 14th Doctor's trilogy of specials, I thought it would be fitting to look back at The Star Beast, but most importantly, the controversial resolution to the Metacrisis storyline introduced all the way back in 2008's Series 4. A big part of the marketing around the 60th anniversary specials was how dangerous it was for former companion Donna Noble to return, only for the Metacrisis to immediately be resolved by the end of the Star Beast in a way a lot of fans weren't and still aren't very happy about. And I'm not talking about politics. There are some significant narrative issues with the Metacrisis resolution. So, without any further ado, let's take a deep dive into Doctor Who's Metacrisis mistake.
Just let it go. And we choose to let it go.
So first of all, what actually is the Metacrisis? Well, back in Series 4, a big ongoing plot thread was the Dr. Donna, a term coined by the Ood which initially symbolised a close and supportive relationship between the 10th Doctor and Donna Noble. However, it then took on a more literal meaning as the series continued, culminating in The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, where Donna began to hear a mysterious heartbeat, eventually getting trapped inside the TARDIS as the Daleks tried to destroy it. In the ensuing chaos, Donna reached out for the 10th Doctor's dismembered hand, which had been cut off all the way back in the Christmas invasion. Because the Doctor had funneled his regeneration energy into that hand, Donna touching it created an instant biological metacrisis, reforming the 10th Doctor's entire body, creating the so-called Metacrisis Doctor, who was essentially human with one heart and a finite lifespan. But he's not important right now. What is important is the effect the Metacrisis had on Donna, giving her the brain of a Time Lord, thus creating the Dr. Donna and allowing the companion to save the day with their newfound advanced intellect. And that's the Metacrisis. We got a human version of the 10th Doctor and a half Time Lord version of Donna Noble. This was a bit controversial on its own, but it's only going to get more polarising from here, so buckle up. After the creation of the Metacrisis Doctor and the Dr. Donna, it turned out that Donna couldn't handle the Time Lord brain burning within her, something that would have resulted in her death had the Doctor not made the painful decision to wipe her memories of him instead and essentially revert her back to the person she was when they first met in The Runaway Bride. The Doctor left Donna with her family and she was able to live her life, albeit without all of that character development. It was tragic but an emotional and striking ending. During the Master's invasion of Earth in the end of time, Donna almost succumbed to her memories resurfacing, but she was ultimately okay, and the last we saw of her she was getting married and being blessed with a winning lottery ticket thanks to the 10th Doctor himself. And that was it, that's the Metacrisis, that's the story of what happened to Donna Noble. The show moved on, changing doctors, companions and showrunners as it has always done. The decision to wipe his friend's mind did stick with the Doctor, particularly in his 12th incarnation, but it was largely considered to be a finished plot thread, a resolved storyline that didn't need to be revisited. Of course, a lot of fans weren't happy about that storyline, considering Donna's ending an unfair one and claiming the Doctor was wrong to wipe her memories, even if that would have cost Donna her life. Ever since that mind wipe, there has been a lingering discontent about that plot point. I personally loved it being such a tragic ending for a character who had come so far because, not everyone gets happy endings. But when showrunner Russell T Davies returned to Doctor Who, it immediately became clear that he himself was one of those unhappy fans. So he wanted to revisit the huge dramatic storyline. When Davies came back to the show, one of the first things he did was bring back David Tennant and Catherine Tate, hoping to recapture the lightning in a bottle that was Series 4 of Doctor Who. So when the 13th Doctor regenerated, it wasn't into Ncuti Gatwa, it was instead the tradition-breaking reveal of the 14th Doctor being David Tennant, bringing back an old face instead of introducing a new one. And therefore, as soon as the 14th Doctor landed in his TARDIS, he magically bumped into Donna Noble once more, who had gone on to live a very normal life, donating all her lottery winnings to charity and settling down with Sean Temple to have a family. It was all very sweet and normal and showed that Donna still deserved a life even without her memories of the Doctor and their adventures, therefore essentially justifying what he was forced to do to her. However, the lack of memory ate away at Donna, this giant hole in her personality and her past. A lot of the early scenes of the Star Beast therefore focus on Donna's memory and how scared the Doctor is of accidentally making her remember, because it would burn up her mind. And the scenes also make sure to acknowledge how much he regrets regrets what he had to do to Donna to keep her alive. It created a compelling piece of drama, although it did falter somewhat as Donna was faced with the Doctor, the Meep, the Sonic Screwdriver, Unit, Giant Bug, Space Police. There was a lot going on. But her memories remaining suppressed is easily explainable as a consequence of the time elapsed since her memory wipe. But regardless, Donna's memories slowly coming back formed the core character drama of the Star Beast, so it all culminated towards the ending of the episode, as the Doctor and Donna are trapped on other sides of the Meep ship, and the Doctor is forced to return her memories and restore the Dr. Donna to save the day once again, regardless of the danger it poses to her, because she just wants to protect everyone. And this is basically where everything unravels, as Donna gets her memories back, helps halt the Meep's plan, and collapses in the Doctor's arms. Just as predicted, her mind begins to burn and she starts to die. The exact thing we've been warned about since Journey's End all those years ago. But then it turns out she's somehow fine because the Metacrisis energy had biologically transferred into Donna's daughter Rose. So she inherited all the abilities of the Dr. Donna, with the memories manifesting in minor ways like Rose's shed and her plushies. So when Donna regained her memories and became the Dr. Donna again, Rose's abilities also activated and allowed her to properly save the day. However, the threat still remained because the Metacrisis energy was simply slowed, not stopped. Therefore, this all would have been a tragic but fascinating fate for Donna to face throughout the trilogy, inching closer towards her seemingly inevitable death before either succumbing to the Metacrisis or somehow escaping it in the giggle. But instead of a storyline like this, Donna and Rose simply let the Metacrisis go, having it flow out of their bodies like some kind of Disney animation. Now, the majority of people seem to hate this turn of events because of Rose's line about the Doctor being a male-presenting Time Lord, but I really just think it's lazy storytelling, building up such a big storyline to just wipe it away like that. The resolution of the Metacrisis narrative has absolutely nothing to do with how the concept was introduced in the Series 4 finale, and that's a real problem. A big issue I've had with Doctor Who over the last decade or so is the relative lack of consequence to significant events the characters experience. It's something Davis himself even poked at in The Giggle, with the Toymaker taunting the Doctor for the fates of the Moffat-era companions, who always had an asterisk next to their name. It's a little bit baffling then that Davis would also do the exact same thing to Donna, completely undoing what happened to her at the end of Series 4, and in the most anticlimactic way possible. Let's take Bad Wolf for example. The Series 1 finale saw companion Rose Tyler stare into the heart of the TARDIS and absorb the time vortex, allowing her to become the godlike Bad Wolf entity and destroy the entire Dalek fleet. However, this came at a price, with the Doctor sacrificing his entire 9th incarnation to save her, the energy killing him instead of Rose. That was never undone. There was never any kind of asterisk next to it. The action had legitimate consequences for both characters and the landscape of the show. Donna's memory erasure in Series 4 was similar, defeating the Daleks came at that cost of her entire life and personality. So to just shrug off those emotional consequences is almost an insulting way of trying to resolve a previously closed plot thread. Davis was the one who elected to bring Donna back. He wasn't forced to try and squirm out of this situation. So I feel like he should have planned a much more cathartic and satisfying reason for her to survive with her memories intact. But as I mentioned, it literally gets hand-waved away as Donna and Rose being able to let the Metacrisis go, and then it's literally never mentioned ever again. It has no real bearing on the subsequent adventures. Davis wrote himself into this corner for almost no reason, and then he didn't even try to write around it with any tact or skill. I think it's kind of fitting in an ironic sense that the same issues with the Metacrisis being resolved were also present in Journey's End itself, as Donna simply flipped a few switches to defeat the entire Dalek invasion of Earth. Simply flushing all of this Metacrisis energy out of her system is almost the exact same non-committal, creatively lazy solution as that earlier, heavily criticised climax. Russell T Davies had like 15 years to try and come up with a way to save Donna without it being so contrived. I know he didn't have any plans to come back to Doctor Who until very recently, but he would have absolutely spent those 15 years at least somewhat thinking about Donna's fate. That's just the kind of writer he has shown himself to be on multiple occasions. Hell, he even even undid Harriet Jones's death in a poetry book in 2017, so I think it's safe to say he would still have been trying to think up potential ways of saving Donna, even if he was just daydreaming whilst writing something else. I think it's time to admit that Davis's biggest flaw as a writer has always been endings. Almost all of his Doctor Who scripts end with some kind of magic Deus Ex Machina resolution saving the day. Even Parting of the Ways, which I praised earlier, has one such ending, although that's one of the few instances of him managing to disguise those inherent writing flaws. Let's look at some of his other disappointing endings. The Autons are defeated by Antiplastic. Blondfell Forge suddenly sees into the heart of the TARDIS, which was never established before. New Earth ends with magic IV bags. Tooth and Claw has a convenient telescope diamond contraption. Pete Tyler magically saves Rose Tyler from the void. Jesus Doctor in Series 3, the list goes on. I love the first Russ T Davies era of Doctor Who, I really do. But it's undeniable that these kinds of sudden, convenient endings were rampant, and the ending of the Star Beast is a big step backwards in Davies's writing ability, instead of showing how he has further honed his craft and his skills. If anything, he's actually gotten worse at his endings. One of the main objectives when writing any story is making sure you have a satisfying and deserved ending that feels both properly earned and set up within the narrative. You have to stick the landing, otherwise the whole journey feels like a waste. And that's exactly the problem with the Star Beast. After the reveal, it acts as if the foundation had been laid to begin with, like there were all these clues hiding in plain sight. But there weren't clues. We didn't see any of Rose's Doctor Who monster plushies. It wasn't seeded or hinted at throughout. There's nothing earned about the ending of the Star Beast, and that solution comes completely out of nowhere. When the specials first aired, I expected there to be some kind of follow-up on the ending, so I wasn't too harsh on it, but it never became relevant again. It really was just like pressing a button to reset everything to the status quo. As I've already said, this Metacrisis storyline should have persisted throughout the entire trilogy. A dark cloud looming over Donna. Instead, Davies rushed the conclusion and wrapped it up so quickly it landed like a lead balloon. I know I keep repeating myself, but I can't emphasize just how much they built up the Metacrisis plot point when advertising these specials. It was one of the only things being talked about by the official channels. This was implied to be a main central focus of the entire trilogy, a big mystery growing throughout and a source of drama, so racing to reset everything to the status quo the way they did devalues the entire thing. To the people like me who actually liked Donna's original ending, it feels like an insulting, cowardly backtrack. But to the people who wanted Donna to get her memories back and have a happier ending, it still feels like a slap in the face because of how badly it was handled and how cheaply it was resolved. I think the truly worst part of the Metacrisis resolution is how Donna and Rose imply that this was always a viable solution. The Doctor just somehow didn't know all that time ago. It's meant to fit into the wider trilogy's themes of letting go of pain and trauma, but it absolutely does not work in this instance. The concept itself is fine, but they focus on all the wrong parts of it. Back in Journey's End, the Dr. Donna says this.
I can think of ideas you two wouldn't dream of in a million years.
That would be a great thing to revisit, showing how the human part of Donna can come up with all these kinds of alternative solutions the 10th Doctor didn't even consider because of him being a Time Lord. But they seem to completely sidestep that easy justification to instead go with a weird social commentary joke or whatever the male presenting Time Lord line is meant to be about. There's a golden nugget of storyline potential hidden underneath all of this mess. You don't have Donna and Rose flush out of their system like it's an afterthought. Instead, you build upon the fact that Donna has had more time now to think of a solution. In Journey's End, the energy was too recent and intense for Donna to survive, so she didn't have time to work out how to save herself. But by spending so much time without the energy and passing on to Rose, it balances out more and gives her way more time to actually put her mind to solving the issue. She'd have 2 whole episodes to work out a solution the Doctor was overlooking and free herself and Rose in a way that feels much more earned than the ending of the Star Beast. And I feel like Davies should have gone down that route. You can still have all your Tennant and Tate comedy and banter like the glory days of Series 4, but with actual ongoing stakes and a proper narrative structure for the 3 interconnected episodes, rather than them just being so weirdly structured. As much as I appreciated the 60th anniversary specials for giving us entertaining and watchable Doctor Who after the Chibnall era, they're absolutely episodes that are aging pretty badly right now as people realise just how much Davies avoided tackling narrative issues that desperately needed to be addressed. There was no answer to the clothing change during regeneration, there was only a vague handwave explanation to the 10th Doctor's face returning, and the resolution to the Metacrisis storyline was beyond disappointing and botched. I mentioned parting of the ways before, and the ending of the Star Beast is like if the 9th Doctor simply expelled the energy of the time vortex and nothing happens afterwards, he just goes about his day. The bigger a storyline is, the bigger and more impactful the solution has to be. It absolutely has to scale upwards to make the climax feel satisfying and appropriate. Donna's Metacrisis was built up and up as this certain death if she remembered the Doctor, only for her to have a fake out emotional death and then the whole dramatic stakes were outright ignored and laughed off. The whole thing is so frustrating as a fan of the first Davies era and the Tennant and Tate pairing. There were so many other more appropriate avenues they could have explored, so it stuns me that they dropped the ball so badly after hyping it all up so much. The Metacrisis mistake is a problem of Davies' own making. He wrote himself into such a tight corner for no reason and then elected to just drop it on the floor and walk away, which shows he continues to struggle with ending his storylines despite having so long to further refine his writing style. It just annoys me how they handled this entire storyline, and I really think it should be mentioned and brought up because of how significant the Metacrisis was back in Series 4 and in the lead up to the Star Beast. But anyway, those are just my scrambled thoughts now that the dust has settled on the 60th anniversary specials. What do you think about the Metacrisis resolution? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye bye. And I'd just like to quickly thank my Bantam level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patron, Glenna Clark, my Platinum level patrons, Matthew Burns and Maximilian Foreman, and all my Gold level patrons, Boots, Daniel Shillito, Franz Orne aka Alarm Vortex, Leigh Marie Farrell, Robert Hock, Spangy Boy, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.